Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The morning after our 15th wedding anniversary, my wife Layla asked me over coffee, "Do you mind if Terrence comes over tonight?" She said the way you ask about ordering pizza. I smiled and nodded. That afternoon, she found her suitcase packed in the hallway with a note that made her face go white. That was when the real fun started. My name is William Carter, and until 3 days ago, I thought I had a decent life. I am a 44-year-old automation engineer who built my business from nothing in a Rust Belt city that looks like the planners quit halfway through the job. My wife, Layla, is a sharp-tongued lawyer at Monroe & Associates, the kind of woman who could argue with a stop sign and win. We have an 18-year-old daughter, Jasmine, who is heading to college in the fall. Or at least that is what I thought I had. The anniversary celebration started innocently enough. Layla booked us a suite at the Grandview Hotel downtown, one of those boutique places that charges $300 a night for exposed brick walls and artisanal soap. We had dinner, drank too much wine, and I allowed myself to believe we were reconnecting after months of her working late. I should have known better. The next morning, while Layla was getting a spa treatment, I was nursing a hangover and scrolling through my phone when hers buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit with a text preview that froze me. "Last night was incredible. I cannot wait to have you all to myself when William is at work today. T." My hand shook as I picked up her phone. No lock screen. She had always been careless about that. The message thread with Terrence Fuller went back months. Hundreds of messages. Photos I will not describe. Plans made in my house and in my bed while I was working 60-hour weeks to pay off her law school loans. I knew the name Terrence. Her co-worker. The man she mentioned casually over dinner. The one with the expensive suits and the smug smile who had been to our house for firm parties. The one who shook my hand and called me buddy while planning to sleep with my wife. I sat in that overpriced hotel room reading message after message, feeling something cold and sharp crystallize in my chest. They were not just having an affair. They were laughing at me. They made jokes about my boring engineering stories and my pathetic attempts at romance. Terrence had sent photos of jewelry with notes like, "This is what you deserve, not some blue-collar loser who smells like motor oil." I was still reading when I heard Layla's key card in the door. She walked in glowing from her facial, hair perfectly styled, wearing the dress I had bought her for Christmas. "Morning, honey. How are you feeling? You were pretty drunk last night," she said. I held up her phone. Terrence texted. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. 15 years with a lawyer teaches you that they are never truly caught, only momentarily inconvenienced. "William, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," I said. "You are very good with words." I stood, surprisingly calm. "But I do not want to hear it right now. It is not what you think. Terrence and I were just what? Just friends? Just colleagues? Just people who send each other naked photos and plan to meet in my house while I am at work." She sat hard on the bed. "How long have you known?" "About 3 minutes," I said. "But apparently you have known for 8 months. I gather my things. The room is paid through checkout. Enjoy your spa weekend." "William, please, we need to talk about this like adults." I stopped at the door and looked back. She was crying, but I had watched her cry in court to sway juries. "You want to talk like adults? Fine. When I get home, I'm changing the locks. You can stay here tonight or go to Terrence's place or sleep in your car. I honestly do not care anymore. You cannot kick me out of my own house." "Watch me," I said, and left her there, crying in a $300 hotel room with a phone full of proof that our marriage was a joke. Back home, I did exactly what I promised. I called a locksmith and had him change every lock on the house. Then I sat in my workshop, the same workshop where Layla and Terrence had apparently been meeting, and planned my next move. People do not understand engineers. We are problem solvers. When something breaks, we figure out why it broke, how to fix it, and how to ensure it never breaks the same way again. My marriage was broken beyond repair. That did not mean I could not fix the deeper problem. The problem was not just that my wife cheated. The problem was that she believed I was too stupid and too weak to do anything about it. That was the problem I intended to solve. I spent the afternoon going through our finances, social media, and shared email accounts. 15 years of marriage means 15 years of shared passwords, joint accounts, and mutual friends who were about to learn some very interesting things about Layla and Terrence. My first stop was Terrence's social media. The man was an open book, posting photos of expensive dinners, weekend trips, and new clothes on an associate salary. Either he was independently wealthy or living beyond his means. A little digging through public records showed 3 maxed-out credit cards and an underwater car loan. Interesting. Next, I looked into their work relationship. Monroe and Associates had a strict policy about relationships between colleagues. Fraternization could lead to immediate termination, especially when it involved a junior partner like Layla and an associate like Terrence. More interesting. Then I found the gold mine. Layla's best friend, Tiana Vaughn, ran a local gossip blog called City Secrets. She specialized in exposing cheating spouses, shady officials, and neighborhood scandals. Tiana and Layla had been friends since college. I had always thought Tiana was too interested in other people's drama. In City Secrets archives, I found something that made me smile for the first time in days. 2 years ago, Tiana wrote a scathing expose about a city councilman's affair. The article destroyed his career and his marriage. In the comments, someone wrote, "Karma is a," followed by an insult aimed at Tiana. The username was Tfuller87. Terrence had tangled with Tiana before and lost. A bigger picture was forming, and I did not like what I saw. But first, I needed to deal with my wife. Layla came home around 6 in the evening after, presumably, spending the day with Terrence. She found her suitcase on the front porch with a note attached. "Since you asked so nicely this morning, Terrence is welcome to come over any time. You, however, are not. The locks have been changed. Your belongings are in the suitcase. Your lawyer can explain the rest. William." She pounded on the door for 20 minutes, threatening to call the police, demanding I let her in to talk like civilized people. I watched from the kitchen window as she finally drove away, probably to Terrence's apartment. Phase 1 complete. The next few days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. I did not yell, make scenes, or do anything that could be used against me in divorce proceedings. I did something much worse. I told the truth. It began with Jasmine. She had planned to stay on campus for the summer, but she came home when she heard about the separation. Layla had gotten her first, spinning a story about me having a midlife crisis and refusing to work on our marriage. "Dad, Mom says you kicked her out without trying to talk," Jasmine said over breakfast. "That is not like you." I showed her the screenshots I had saved, not the explicit photos. I am not a monster, but the messages where they mocked me, the plans to meet in our house, the jokes about my attempts at romance. Jasmine's face went through shock, hurt, and then disgust. "She really wrote this about you?" 8 months worth, I said, while I worked overtime to pay for your college tuition and her student loans. "And Terrence? You met him at the firm's holiday party. He seemed nice," she whispered. "He called me a blue-collar loser who smells like motor oil in one message," I said. Then he shook my hand and thanked me for the beer I bought him. Jasmine was quiet a long time. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they are." The first shot came at the Monroe and Associates summer picnic. It is a big family-friendly event at Riverside Park where the firm shows off its community spirit. Layla planned to bring Terrence as a friend while telling people we were taking a break. I showed up uninvited. William, Layla's boss, Marjorie Monroe, greeted me with surprise. "I did not expect to see you here." "I would not miss it," I said loudly. "I want to thank Terrence Fuller for the extra attention he has been giving my wife." Conversations stilled around us. Terrence, standing next to Layla with his hand on her back, went pale. "William, please," Layla whispered. "Not here." "Why not here?" I asked. "You were not shy about bringing him to our anniversary dinner last month. Remember that, Terrence, when you texted Layla about how hot she looked while I was in the restroom?" Marjorie's eyes widened. Several partners drifted closer, sensing drama. "I think there is a misunderstanding," Terrence said tightly. "Oh, there's a misunderstanding," I said. "I misunderstood what kind of person I married." I held on my phone, wanting to read some messages. "I have 8 months of them." "That is private," Layla snapped. "Not anymore," I said. I glanced at the growing crowd. "I used to think when someone betrays you, you should protect their reputation. Keep it classy. Suffer in silence." Then I realized I should not protect people who laughed at me behind my back. Marjorie stepped forward. "Perhaps this should happen in private." "You are right," I said. "It should have, 8 months ago, between a husband and wife." Instead, it happened in my bed in my house while I worked to pay for both their lifestyles. Oh, and Marjorie, you might want to check your fraternization policy. I believe it mentions immediate termination. I walked away to absolute silence, leaving Layla and Terrence standing like deer in headlights. Behind me, the whispers rose like a swarm of angry bees. Phase 2 complete. The fallout was swift. By Monday morning, both Layla and Terrence were called into Marjorie's office. By Tuesday, Terrence had been encouraged to seek employment elsewhere. By Wednesday, Layla was on administrative leave, pending an investigation. But the real damage was social. Our 15-year friend group had to choose sides, and, thanks to my performance at the picnic, they had all the information they needed. Most chose Layla. It should not have surprised me, but it did. These were people who had eaten at my table, borrowed my tools, asked me to help them move, whose kids I had coached in Little League. Layla was a lawyer, articulate and persuasive. She told them I was having a breakdown, that I humiliated her over a misunderstanding. The first to lecture me were David and Carol Johnson, our neighbors for a decade. David cornered me at the mailbox. "William, what the hell?" Carol talked to Layla, and she is devastated. "You cannot air your dirty laundry in public like that." "My dirty laundry?" I said. "I'm not the one who was cheating." "She says it was not like that," he said. "She says you two have had problems for months, and she was just talking to a friend." "David," I said, "she was sleeping with him in my house. I have the messages." "Marriages are complicated," he said. "But what you did at the picnic was cruel. Layla's reputation is ruined. She might lose her job." "Good," I said. He stepped back like I had slapped him. "Jesus, William. You used to be one of the good guys." "Apparently the good guys finish last," I said. Then came Thomas and Jennifer Brooks, friends since college. Jennifer called me. "William, I am disappointed. I never thought you would be vindictive." "Vindictive?" I said. "She cheated on me for 8 months. So you destroy her career? Humiliate her in front of colleagues? That is not the man I know. The man you knew," I said, "worked 60 hours a week while his wife slept with her coworker. Maybe you did not know me as well as you thought." "This is not you," she said. "You need professional help." "I need friends that do not side with cheaters," I said, and hung up. It went like that with couple after couple. They heard Layla first, and she was convincing. I was the bitter husband who could not handle his wife's friendship with a colleague. I escalated things unnecessarily. I was the one who needed to take responsibility for my part in the marriage's problems. By the end of the week, I was persona non grata in my own circle. Invitations stopped. Texts dried up. When I ran into people at the grocery store, they gave tight smiles and hurried away. It was like being erased from my own life. But I was not done. The breaking point came at Jasmine's graduation party. We had planned it months ago, a backyard barbecue to celebrate her admission to State University. She begged me not to cancel, and I could not disappoint her. I did not expect half the guest list to show up anyway. The Johnsons came. The Brookses came. The Hendersons from down the street came, and several other couples from our old friend group. They were polite but cold, talking in small clusters and avoiding me. The worst part was watching them comfort Layla, who arrived with Jasmine and played the wounded ex-wife flawlessly. She wore a simple black dress that made her look fragile and dignified. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She accepted hugs and whispered condolences like she was at a funeral. I stood at the grill and tried to ignore the pointed conversations around me. "She is being so brave," I heard Carol whisper to Jennifer. "I cannot believe he is making her go through this publicly," Jennifer replied. "That thing at the firm picnic was cruel. She says he will not even consider counseling. He just wants to destroy her life." I flipped a burger too hard and grease spattered the grill. David approached, beer in hand, righteousness in his voice. "William, we need to talk." "I am busy cooking," I said. "This cannot go on," he said. "Look around. You are tearing apart 15 years of friendships over a marriage that was already in trouble." "Already in trouble," I said. "According to who?" "According to everyone," he said. "You worked all the time. You never paid attention to Layla's needs. She was lonely. So lonely she had to sleep with her coworker in my bed." I said, louder than I intended. Conversation stopped. "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "There are children here." "You are right," I said. "Let us not upset the children with talk about adultery and betrayal. Better to pretend it never happened." Thomas joined in, face flushed. "Enough, William. You are embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself." I said. Not the woman who lied for 8 months. Layla made a mistake, Thomas said. She is human. But your public humiliation campaign is sick. Faces watched. Former friends who had decided I was the villain. You want to know what is sick? I said. Not one of you asked to see evidence before deciding I was lying. You knew something was going on, and nobody told me. You care more about Layla's reputation than the fact that she destroyed a 15-year marriage. William, please, Jasmine whispered, mortified. Not here. Your mother started this, I said. I am finishing it. Jennifer stepped forward, voice shaking. How dare you put Jasmine in the middle? She is 18, and you are making her choose. I am not making her choose, I said. I am telling the truth. The truth. Thomas laughed. The truth is you are a bitter, vindictive man who cannot handle that his marriage failed. My marriage did not fail, I said. It was sabotaged. By who, he asked. Layla? Or you, with your 70-hour weeks and years of neglect? The accusation hit like a blow. Heads nodded. That was the story they accepted. I drove her into another man's arms. I worked 70 hours to pay her loans, I said quietly. I worked overtime for Jasmine's tuition. I worked weekends to pay for this house and these barbecues. And while you worked, your wife was dying of loneliness, Carol said. She felt isolated, disconnected. So, she connected with Terrence instead, I said. She made a mistake, David shouted. People make mistakes. Instead of working it out, you decided to destroy her. I decided to stop protecting someone who laughed at me, I said. The argument spiraled. Jasmine cried. People shouted. Neighbors stared over the fence. Layla sat quietly, letting others defend her. That was when I snapped. You want to see what kind of mistake she made? I pulled out my phone. Here is one. Here is another. Here is, Dad, stop. Jasmine begged, grabbing my arm, but I was past stopping. Months of rage and humiliation poured out. You all think I am the bad guy. I said, fine. Here's what your good guy looks like. I held up the phone. Here is Layla calling me a pathetic loser to her boyfriend. Here is her making fun of my anniversary gift. Here is her laughing about how stupid I was for not figuring it out sooner. The backyard fell silent except for Jasmine's sobs. Thomas stepped forward and slapped the phone from my hand. You are sick, William. You need help. 15 years of friendship died in that moment. I looked at the faces around me. Disgusted, angry, disappointed. They had chosen, and it was not me. Get out, I said. William, David began. Get out, I roared. All of you get out of my house. Within 10 minutes, the yard was empty except for me, Jasmine, and the ruins of a graduation party. Jasmine stared at me, with tears streaming. Dad, what have you become? I had no answer. After the disaster, I retreated to my workshop and did what I always do when the world does not make sense. I took things apart to see how they worked. In this case, the thing was the story everyone believed about my marriage. It started with a question. How had all my friends known about Layla's affair before I did? The way they talked, defended her, acted like her cheating was inevitable. It suggested they had been prepared for this revelation. Someone had been laying the groundwork. I started with Tiana, Layla's best friend and the city's premier gossip blogger. If anyone spread the narrative that our marriage was in trouble, it would be her. In her blog archives, I found subtle mentions of relationship problems in our social circle going back months. She never named names, but dropped enough hints for regular readers to piece things together. References to workaholic husbands and neglected wives, the warning signs everyone ignores. She had been building a case before the affair became public. But why? What did she gain from destroying my marriage? The answer came from an unexpected source, my business records. 3 years earlier, I had hired a paralegal to help with contract disputes. She seemed competent at first, but made costly mistakes that nearly lost me a major client. When I confronted her, she became defensive, claimed a hostile work environment, and I had to fire her and pay a settlement to avoid a lawsuit. Her name was Tiana Vaughn. Suddenly, it made sense. The subtle campaign against my reputation, her positioning as Layla's confidant, the blog posts painting cheating wives as victims of neglectful husbands. She did not just report my marriage's collapse. She orchestrated it. I needed proof. I spent the next week doing the kind of deep research that makes me good at my job. Public records, social media archives, deleted blog posts from internet caches. A pattern emerged. Tiana's blog was not merely gossip. It was revenge. Every major story she broke involved someone who had crossed her. The councilman who removed her from a planning committee. The business owner who refused to advertise. The lawyer who beat her in a custody case. She collected grudges like stamps, and I had made her list when I fired her for incompetence. The final piece came from Terrence's old posts. Angry rants about blogger witches who ruin lives for clicks. He had tangled with Tiana before, and she exposed his gambling debts and infidelity, blowing up a previous relationship. That was when I realized Tiana had not just enabled Layla's affair. She probably engineered it. She pushed them together, encouraged the relationship, and positioned herself to control the narrative when it exploded. She turned my wife into a weapon against me. The question became, what was I going to do about it? Revenge, like engineering, requires planning, precise execution, and an understanding of how the pieces fit together. Tiana spent 3 years building a machine designed to destroy my life. I would turn that machine against her. The plan was simple. Give her exactly what she wanted. Tiana thrived on drama, scandal, and public humiliation. Her blog depended on a stream of dirty secrets and explosive revelations. She built her reputation by exposing private lives. I would make her the star of her own show. Step 1. Gather ammunition. I already had evidence of her campaign against me, but I needed more, something that would destroy her credibility and expose her methods to the entire city. The breakthrough came when I accessed her email account. It was not difficult. She used the same password everywhere, and I had learned it years earlier when she worked for me. What I found was a gold mine of unethical behavior. Emails with sources offering to pay for stories, correspondence with private investigators digging up dirt, messages coordinating with other bloggers to amplify scandals. Most damning was a plan to neutralize William Carter by exploiting Layla's affair. She documented her own conspiracy. Step 2. Set the trap. I created a fake account and sent Tiana an anonymous tip about a prominent businessman scandal. I claimed to have photos and documents proving embezzlement, fraud, and infidelity. All I needed was to meet to hand over the evidence. She bit immediately. Step 3. Choose the venue. Tiana suggested Riverside Park, the same place I confronted Layla and Terrence. Poetic, but I had a better idea. Let's meet at the summer festival, I wrote. It will be crowded, easier to blend in, less chance of being overheard. The city's biggest annual event, with a main stage for speeches. The perfect place for a public revelation. She agreed to meet near the stage at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. Step 4. Prepare the presentation. If I was going to destroy Tiana's reputation, I had to do it thoroughly and publicly. I compiled a dossier, emails, blog posts, patterns of targeting, and her role in engineering my marriage's collapse. Then I did something the old William would have never done. I sent copies to every major news outlet in the city with a note promising a major announcement at the summer festival. Step 5. Wait. Saturday arrived gray and humid, with the threat of thunderstorms. Perfect weather for what I had planned. I arrived early, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, and positioned myself near the main stage. The crowd was thick with families, couples, and groups of friends. At exactly 2 o'clock, I saw Tiana pushing through the crowd. She looked nervous, but excited, probably thinking she was about to break another career-making story. That was when I made my move. I did not approach Tiana. I walked to the main stage, where a local band had just finished. "Excuse me," I said to the sound technician. "I am William Carter. There is a schedule change." He looked confused, but I was already climbing the steps. Murmurs rose as people recognized me. Word of the firm picnic had spread. I had become a local celebrity, or a villain, depending on who you asked. I tapped the microphone. The sound echoed across the grounds. "Good afternoon. My name is William Carter, and I have a story to tell you." In the crowd, I saw Tiana freeze. She realized this was not the private handoff she expected. 3 months ago, I discovered that my wife of 15 years was having an affair with her coworker. When I confronted them, I was told I was the problem. I was the bad husband. I drove her into another man's arms by working too hard and paying too little attention. The crowd swelled. Phones came out. Cameras aimed. Many of you heard that story and believed it. It makes sense, does it not? Neglected wife seeks comfort elsewhere. Bitter husband lashes out. A tale as old as time. I paused, letting the silence grow dense. But what if I told you that story was crafted by someone with a personal vendetta against me? What if I told you my marriage was not destroyed by neglect, but by deliberate manipulation? I spotted familiar faces. David and Carol Johnson looked uncomfortable. Thomas and Jennifer Brooks whispered. Even Marjorie Monroe watched. Expression unreadable. Allow me to introduce Tiana Vaughn, the city's premier gossip blogger and the architect of my personal destruction. I pointed into the crowd. A spotlight swung, catching her in the beam. She stood frozen, suddenly the subject instead of the narrator. 3 years ago, I fired Miss Vaughn from her job as my paralegal for professional incompetence. Apparently, she did not take it well. Since then, she has been planning her revenge, and my marriage was collateral damage. I held up a folder of printed emails. I have evidence that Miss Vaughn encouraged my wife's affair, coordinated with her lover, and launched a campaign to paint me as a negligent husband who deserved it. The crowd went still. She has been doing this for years, targeting anyone who crosses her, using her blog to destroy reputations and ruin lives. She does not report the news. She manufactures it. I opened the folder and read Tiana's own words. Plans to neutralize me, strategies to control the narrative, coordination with other blogs to amplify attacks. With each revelation, the mood shifted. These were not abstract accusations. They were receipts. Here is the beautiful irony, I said. Her blog is called City Secrets. She has made a career exposing other people's private business. So I thought it was fair to return the favor. I pulled out more documents, financial records, legal filings, personal correspondence, painting a picture of Tiana's own life. Did you know our crusading blogger has not paid taxes in 3 years? Did you know she has blackmailed sources? Did you know she's being sued by 4 people for defamation? The crowd grew restless. Angry murmurs rippled. Tiana was trapped in a sea of faces. And here's my favorite part, I said, lifting the final stack. She was so busy destroying other people's lives, she forgot to cover her own tracks. Everything I am telling you is documented in her own emails, which she left unsecured. I have sent copies to the police, the Internal Revenue Service, the State Attorney General's office, and every news outlet in the city. Miss Vaughn's career is over. Her credibility is gone, and everyone she has targeted now has grounds for civil lawsuits. The crowd turned ugly. People shouted questions, accusations, demands for justice. Security moved to calm things, but I was not finished. One more thing, I said. To everyone who believed her lies about my marriage, who took her side without asking for evidence, who decided I was the villain, you owe me an apology. More than that, you owe yourselves some serious reflection about how easily you were manipulated. I looked directly at David, Thomas, and the others who had turned their backs on me. You were so eager to believe the worst about someone you had known for years that you never questioned the source. You let a vindictive blogger turn you into weapons against an innocent man. You should be ashamed. Security reached me, but I was already leaving the microphone. My work was done. Behind me, the crowd churned. People shouted at Tiana, demanding explanations. She cried, trying to push through the bodies while photographers captured everything. I walked calmly away. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The old William would have suffered in silence, protected his tormentor's reputation, tried to handle it privately. The new William had just ended his enemies' careers in front of half the city, and it felt like oxygen filling collapsed lungs. The fallout was immediate. By Sunday morning, City Secrets was offline. By Monday, Tiana was served with lawsuits from 6 different people she targeted. By Tuesday, the State Attorney General announced an investigation into her business practices. By Wednesday, she fled the city, leaving behind angry creditors and ruined relationships. Local news framed it as an expose on blogger ethics and the dangers of unverified gossip. I gave one interview to Channel 7's investigative reporter, calmly presenting my evidence and explaining how I uncovered Tiana's manipulation. This is not about revenge, I said to the camera. It is about accountability. When someone uses a platform to destroy innocent people, there have to be consequences. The interview went locally viral. People targeted by Tiana came forward with their own stories of manipulation and harassment. A pattern of abuse emerged that made my situation look almost mild in comparison. The most satisfying part was watching my former friend squirm. David called on Thursday evening. William, I owe you an apology. We all do. I had no idea about Tiana. You had no idea because you did not want to know, I said. It was easier to believe I was the problem. You are right, he said. We should have listened to your side. You should have asked for evidence before choosing sides, I replied. He was quiet. Is there any way we can fix our friendship? David, you have known me for 10 years. Have I ever lied to you? Been cruel? Vindictive? Unreasonable? No, he said. Never. Yet when someone told you I was all those things, you believe it immediately. You did not question it or even ask for my side. That tells me you never really knew me. If that is the case, we were never truly friends. I hung up. Similar conversations followed with Thomas and Jennifer, with Carol, and with others. They wanted to apologize, to rebuild, to pretend the last few months had not happened. I turned them all down. The truth was, I did not want those friendships back. The people who abandoned me at my lowest point, who believed lies without question, who chose the word of a manipulator over a decade of personal experience, they were not the kind of people I needed. I was better off without them. 6 months later, I was a different man living a different life. My business had grown during the chaos of the divorce. Word spread about my detective work exposing Tiana's conspiracy. Apparently, there's a market for someone who can dig up the truth when official channels fail. I started taking private investigation cases alongside my engineering contracts, and both sides of the business thrived. Jasmine came around after learning the full truth about Tiana's manipulation. She apologized for doubting me and started spending more time at the house. We repainted rooms, replaced furniture that felt like relics of a life I no longer lived, and made the house truly mine. I am proud of you, Dad, Jasmine said one evening as we rolled paint across the living room. Not for what you did to Tiana. That was a little scary, but for standing up for yourself. For not letting them make you the villain. Sometimes the only way to stop being a victim is to become something else entirely, I said. Layla tried to reconcile after the truth came out, claiming Tiana had manipulated her like everyone else. I listened to her apologies with polite indifference, then handed her the divorce papers my lawyer prepared. William, she said, tears streaming. We can work through this. Now that we know what really happened, we can start over. What really happened, I said, is that you chose to believe I was a pathetic loser rather than a faithful husband. You laughed at my romantic gestures with your boyfriend. You slept with another man in our bed while I worked to pay your student loans. You were not forced. You were willing. Tiana did not make you cheat. She gave you permission to do what you already wanted. The divorce finalized without contest. Layla lost her job at Monroe & Associates and could not afford a prolonged legal fight. I kept the house, my business, and my self-respect. She got half our savings and a hard lesson about consequences. Terrence disappeared after losing his job, probably to outrun the gambling debts Tiana helped expose. I occasionally wondered where he landed, but not enough to look. The most surprising development was my relationship with Marjorie Monroe. She reached out after the dust settled, not to apologize, but to offer me work. We need someone with your investigative skills, she said over lunch. Corporate espionage, background checks, fraud investigations. There is good money in it, and you have proven you are very good at uncovering the truth. I declined the job, but took several consulting contracts. It was satisfying work, helping people who had been wronged find evidence for justice. The deeper satisfaction came from the life I built. No more fake friends who vanished at the first sign of trouble. No more unfaithful spouse who saw me as a meal ticket instead of a partner. No more manipulation. I learned that sometimes the only way to solve a problem is to burn it down and start over. And I learned I'm very good at burning things down. A year after the summer festival, I was invited to speak at a conference on online harassment and reputation management. The organizers wanted me to share my story as an example of how victims can fight back against malicious blogs and social media attacks. Standing at the podium before lawyers, journalists, and advocates, I reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, I was someone who believed that if you work hard, treat people fairly, and mind your own business, life will treat you fairly in return. I believed the truth would always come out. I believed good people would recognize lies. I believed justice happens naturally. I let the silence stretch. I was wrong. The truth does not come out on its own. You have to drag it into the light. Good people can be fooled by convincing lies. Justice is something you have to create. I told them about Tiana's campaign of manipulation, how she turned friends against me and weaponized my wife's affair. I explained how I investigated her methods, gathered evidence, and exposed her publicly. Some people criticized my methods, I said. They say I was too harsh, too public, too vindictive. They say I should have handled it privately, with dignity and restraint. I smiled, thinking of the calls from David and Thomas, the apologies that came only after the tide turned. Here is what they do not understand. Sometimes the proper channels do not work. Sometimes dignity and restraint are just other words for letting bad actors win. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to become something they are afraid of. The room went quiet, not with disapproval, but with the heavy attention of people who had lived their own versions of this story. I am not advocating vigilante justice, I said, or public shaming for minor offenses. But when someone systematically destroys innocent people for personal gain, when they use a platform to spread lies and turn your friends and family against you, politeness becomes complicity. The old William would have suffered in silence, protected reputations that did not deserve protection, and rebuilt quietly. The new William decided that some people deserve to have their lives dismantled in return. I told him I sleep very well at night, knowing that Tiana Vaughn will never again hurt another innocent person the way she hurt me. After the speech, people approached with their own stories. A small business owner whose competitor tanked his reviews with fake accounts. A teacher targeted by a vindictive parent's social media campaign. A local candidate whose opponent spread lies about his family. They all wanted the same thing: help fighting back. I gave them my card and told them to call. After all, I had found my calling: solving problems that cannot be solved through proper channels. And I am very, very good at it. Driving home that night, I thought about the man I had been a year earlier. Naive, trusting, willing to believe the best about people even when they showed me their worst. That man is gone, along with the marriage, the friendships, and the old life. In his place stands someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to those who prey on the innocent. Some might call that a tragedy. I call it evolution. The radio played a song about second chances and new beginnings as the highway unfurled ahead of me, lights winking in the distance like a runway. I turned it up and smiled, thinking about all the problems out there waiting to be solved, all the bullies who needed to be stopped, all the justice that needed to be created. The new William Carter was just getting started. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.